Autism is a learning disability that affects how people communicate and interact in everyday life. There are approximately 700,000 people in the UK that suffer from autism. This documentary will look at how individuals are affected by their autism and the support provided for the individual and their families.
I'm Rebecca. I'm 18. Jessica Nuttall, 18.
My name's Patsy Farthing. I'm a learning support worker at Hotwood Hall College.
My name's Rhys Coker. So I'm a training service manager for Point in Oldham.
How old were you when you was diagnosed with autism?
So it was back in 2007. I think I was 5 years old, but obviously at the time I wasn't familiar with it, and I had found out about it years later from my parents, so that was quite a shock, but then everything hit me, so.
How old were you when you were diagnosed with autism?
Probably about 15. It was in the middle of high school.
I was 12 years old when I was diagnosed with autism, and it was a long journey. It wasn't an instant diagnosis. It was a long road of misdiagnoses, suspicions that I was just good old-fashioned naughty. It was an interesting journey.
I have very specific interests, so like I love listening to music, and I love a lot of animated films and stuff like that.
What are your interests?
Harry Potter. I'm obsessed with it. I've been since the age of 10.
Does your autism cause you to have any obsessions like Harry Potter?
Well, I think so. And it is common with autistic people. To have obsessions. And Harry Potter is one of the ones that is popular for autistic people to have.
Do I have obsessions? Does my autism cause me to have obsessions? And yes, I believe some people refer to them as special interests. I think obsessions is a good word. Interestingly, my lifelong special interest, stroke obsession, has been martial arts. So I've done martial arts since I was 12 years old, and I've always it seems like I've always been interested in that. And the other one, interestingly, I am fascinated and a little bit obsessed with the way the human mind works. So I love studying and reading about psychology.
Autistic people may act differently to other people. They may find it harder to interact with other people, understand people's thoughts and feelings. Autism can be different in boys and girls. Autistic girls may be quieter and may hide their feelings and may appear to cope better in social situations. This means autism can be harder to spot in girls. It affects me in many ways, but I definitely see more negative ways than positive at the moment. Like, for example, I'd get really upset about a lot of things, about a lot of people when I don't intentionally mean to. I would overthink things, I get really nervous, but with some positives, I use like singing as a way of expressing myself when I struggle with conversations. I struggle communicating with people. I struggle with changes, like from primary school to high school. That was a nightmare. And I also struggle with like different sounds, and my senses are heightened. So sounds and smells that don't usually affect people can affect me pretty badly.
How was I affected by my autism? I suppose it's a past and present tense answer to that in terms of how I'm affected. I would say mainly the domain is social. So I was blessed with a super brain, an IQ of well over 150, and my brain works very, very rapidly. And yet I am still an absolute social moron. So there are still classic areas such as knowing when to start talking, knowing when to stop talking, especially knowing when to stop talking, knowing when somebody is bored with me, reading simple emotions in people. I've always found that very, very confusing. Their faces I find very, very confusing. Eye contact, virtually impossible for me. And yeah, just a little bit of social isolation. And the paradox is, if I'm around people for a long time, I get completely peopled out. And so I try to shy away from people, and yet I still experience loneliness. So it's almost this paradox. I want to connect, and yet connecting with people is so exhausting for me. So yeah, I would say mainly my issues are around social communication.
Some of the support services available for autistic individuals and their families are Together Trust, based in Stockport, Bright Futures, based in Saddleworth, and Point, based in Oldham.
I think it's really important, especially in college, that there's learning support available, and also outside of college I feel that there should be support available for people with autism. It's really, really important that people are unique, but they're able to access services inside college and services outside college. I feel that all students and all people are unique and different, and so yes, for some students who have autism, they have different learning styles and different learning needs, and it's about working with them which is best to support them to be able to access courses at college and be able to learn and gain their certificates and qualifications. I find my work extremely rewarding. I really enjoy working with all the students here at Hotwood Hall.
Did I have support when I was in education? It's a really interesting topic, and I think you'd have to consider the whole subject of education for me, and the experience as well as simply the support. The experience was mostly bad. There was bullying in the much younger stages. Bearing in mind I was diagnosed at 12, there's that entire school gap, from school age up to 12, where there was no support because I didn't have that rubber stamp on me. Oh look, autistic. And therefore has some special needs. So that didn't happen until I was 12, and the time that I went to school was quite a while ago, and they didn't have Senkos, and they didn't have special provisions within mainstream schools. So what you had is you had a choice of tough it out and try and stick in a mainstream school that was undertrained and not prepared to support you, or you'd go to the special school.
I have had support. I do feel like primary school support was better than secondary school, because I think with secondary school there are challenges with GCSEs and everything like that. I feel like more could have been done. I could have used some confidence to speak up more.
Have you had a lot of support from college?
Yeah, definitely. Probably like the best support. Like, I was really surprised to find out, there were like personal tutors and student support tutors and a counsellor. I just thought that this was definitely the best range of support I could ever have, and it was really overwhelming, but in a really good way. So I was really pleased.
Point was founded in 2010 by 4 parents, carers and young people with additional needs. Point aspire to an inclusive community and society without compromise, where all children with special needs and disabilities are treated equally and fairly. Since Point was launched in 2010, it has grown from just 45 members to over 1,700.
So I'm Andrew Robinson. So I'm the CEO of Point, so I founded Point back in 2010.
What's it like employing an autistic individual?
So in terms of our organisation, that's a large percentage of the children and young people that we support. Very high incidence of autism in Oldham. So I think when you're delivering services that's supporting that cohort, it's really important that that's delivered by people with that lived experience, and that's why we're really keen to make sure that we have that employment strategy that enables people with autism to come into full-time employment.
What's the challenges of working with someone with autism?
I don't think there's particular challenges that we wouldn't see if we're working with anybody with any form of disability. So I think what you need to be as an employer is open to be flexible. You've got to recognise the needs of any individual that works for you, and obviously adapt to those needs as well, and just be prepared to do things that are slightly out of the box and recognise when things aren't going well and step in.
Do I find my work rewarding? I feel as if I found my place in life. I've had lots of jobs. I've really struggled with employment. Some of that is simply the fact that the environment just doesn't get you, doesn't understand you. But of course, working for Point, given that Point is all about special educational needs and disabilities, you would imagine that Point would be able to get it right in terms of recruiting, inducting and employing an autistic individual. And all I can say is Point get it very right. I feel slightly sorry for them at times, but I don't feel sorry for me. It's a wonderful place to work. I get to act as support, and one of them was one of the nicest things I think anyone's ever said to me on the feedback form. Was that I was like a lighthouse to them. So I gave them hope, that their young person who at that time in their life might be struggling and might be going through challenges, that they could end up in a wonderful place, flourishing, living a happy life. And if I can act as that, as an example, as a beacon of hope, So to answer that question, is my job rewarding? Yeah, I think it's the best job in the world.
Sensory toys are toys that provide the particular sensory input that many children with autism crave. Together Trust offers a range of services for children with special needs, one of them being special education. The Together Trust has 3 schools: Ashcroft School, Inscape School and Bridge College. Bright Futures specialise in provision for autistic children aged 5 to 16 years old and bring a new approach to autism education.